There's no way to explain historically how the Jewish people are still here. The mightiest of empires tried to decimate us. Those empires are gone, and we're still impacting the world in a big way. And it's shocking because we're a tiny people. We're still a tiny people. And there's still anti-Semitism. It hasn't changed. Protocols of Zion. You have all these different things that have come out. We're right after the Holocaust. Literally, there was a major effort to decimate us. It can't happen. It simply can't happen. That's what we have to understand when we speak about us being a miraculous people. So Devorah Lipstadt, who we just quoted before, so she wrote a book, Anti-Semitism Here and Now, right? So she wrote a book about anti-Semitism, how it's here and now. And when she was asked in the recent interview what the future will bring for the Jews, you know what she said? Text number 3. She says, the fact that we're here is such a historical anomaly, it makes no sense. So sometimes when I'm asked about anti-Semitism, people will say, well, how can you be optimistic in all of this? How can you see the positive? It's such a dreary situation. And I say, because we shouldn't be here. And the fact that we are here shouldn't be taken for granted. Like, we take that for granted. Think, oh, we're lucky. We're lucky? What do we have? 88 lives? Right? No, we're eternal. Like, really, we have to be very much aware of this. And when we're aware of this, this is a source of great optimism. No anti-Semitism is wiping out the Jewish people. Yes, it creates a lot of problems, and lives are lost. I mean, terrible things happen from it. But it's not decimating the Jewish people. And that is an optimism to be aware of. There was a time when Maimonides was living. Okay, that was about 800 years ago. The year 1168. So in the year 1168, the Jews of Yemen had a three-pronged problem going on in the country. The first was that a fanatical Muslim cleric rose to power, and he decreed that all Jews have to convert to Islam. Number two, a Jew who embraced Islam began preaching how Islam is the truth and Judaism, and Islam is replacing Judaism. You know that one? Christians tried that. Muslims tried that. And then, on top of all of that, there was a Jewish impostor who claimed he was the Messiah. Now, this is a real battery attack on the Jewish community and creates a lot of confusion. And so one rabbi in Yemen wrote a letter to Maimonides to give guidance and to help them. And what did Maimonides write? He wrote that what you're dealing with is horrific, but remember one thing, that the Jews are an indestructible people. The Jews will not be destroyed. It's not a possibility that we will be destroyed. And he refers to teachings from the Torah, where God promises our forefather Jacob. God promised Jacob that we will be an eternal people. And, you know, I understand, and in part, like, feel, you know, you see a verse in the Torah that says something like that. We have hindsight. We're living in the year 5782, right? 5080, the second year from creation, right? So this was written about, we got the Torah 3,333 years ago, I believe it is, or something like that. But it was sent to Jacob of maybe a couple hundred years before that. So this is going on for 3,500 years that God promises to Jacob. And we can see that any historian would have predicted us being gone, and we're not. So while it's hard to say, wow, that prophetic statement by God to Jacob really is happening, but that's exactly what's happening. And there are many, many verses in our prophets that we literally see to be true today. And for those of you who took our spring course, we know that also regarding the Messianic era as well. There's been a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. I showed you that in the beginning of the lesson. In the last few years, there's been a rise in anti-Semitic incidents. What's fascinating is there has been a decline in individuals who have anti-Semitic sentiments. Isn't that interesting? So why is there a rise in incidents if fewer people are anti-Semitic? That probably, I don't know, but that probably has something to do with the internet, with modern technology. Possibly, probably, whatever the answer is doesn't really make a difference right now. But the point is, incidents have risen, but the amount of people who have anti-Semitic sentiments has declined. And that's significant. Because while the incidents, we want the incidents to increase, but the fewer people who have anti-Semitic feelings, the safer of a world we're living in. So if you go to figure 1.8, you'll see stereotypes about Jews. So this is the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, took surveys. In 1964, they took a survey about how many people believe in these statements, that Jews stick together more than other Americans, Jews always like to be at the head of things, Jews are more loyal to Israel than America, Jews have too much power in the business world, this goes on and on. And when you look at this, you'll see that in 1964, 29% of Americans, or of non-Jews, I guess, that they surveyed, believed in more than 6 of these sentiments. And in 2019, only 11% actually believed in more than 6 of these, which is a very significant decline. To go from 29% to 11%, that's fantastic. So that's another thing to consider, the entire picture of things. Quick comment. Yes? Okay, fine. Okay. And just a moment. Yeah. And the last one that we're going to discuss is, just a second here. Yeah, and the last one we're going to discuss is, I fear not because you are with me. And this is going to jump into a little bit more of a spiritual dimension, but it's very, very important. And that's part of my encouragement from the beginning of the lesson. It's really, really important to plug into, sometimes we have to try something new when the same old isn't very effective. What is the most often repeated 2-word phrase in the Torah? In the Tanakh. That means in the Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, the 5 books of Moses, prophets, and writings, which is what we call the written law, or the canonized Bible. What are the 2 most often repeated words? Al tira. Do not fear. Why does God have to keep on telling us, do not fear? Because humans naturally step into a state of fear. That's why dictators use fear to control the masses, because fear works. It's easy to get people to fall into fear very quickly. We're very vulnerable to that. So God tells us 44 times in the Torah, al tira, do not fear. And there are another 26 times where it says al tira'u, which is just a plural form of do not fear. And there are 110 other times that it says the same thing in a different variation. Do not fear, do not fear. Why does this phrase continuously repeat itself? Why does God continuously tell this to us? Because we need to hear it over and over and over. And that is not to slip into a state of fear. Well, easier said than done. How does a person not slip into a state of fear? We all know what happens. Like I know that there are certain things in a moment, certain things, the moment they happen, I feel anxious. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I can tell you what they are. Like in a single moment, certain things make me anxious immediately. And I know it. And I've decreased the anxiety. That means that within a couple of hours, it used to hang around for a day or two. Like I was edgy from it. And now in a couple of hours, it's gone. But it's like instinctive, right? That's our nature. So how do we change that? And this is really a part of what we're going to learn now, is a part of what I try and exercise doing. And that is that the reminder that God is always in control of everything. We may not be happy with the way something is right now, and very often that is the case, but God is in control of everything. So should we have security guards? If necessary, if experts say yes, we should. Should we lobby politicians? Yes, we should. And we must also create a space for God to act, which is by doing these things, and remembering that God is the one who is bringing the blessings, and the way we strengthen those blessings is by aligning ourselves more and more with God.